Initially, many colonists were put off by the idea of a constitution because it implied that the government had unlimited power that was only restrained by a few laws that would be set up in the Constitution. Some early Americans feared for their individual rights like freedom of speech, and they did not trust the Constitution. One of their main issues with the Constitution was that it gave the government too much power and didn't give the people enough protection from the government. Remember the Magna Carta and the English Bill of Rights? These were bills the colonists had already lived under, which were supposed to guarantee individual rights. These were only put into place after the monarchs abused their power, and even then, these rights were just demands that the monarch agreed to. Imagine the colonists seeing this new constitution without any rights included. Some saw it as a step towards an even more powerful or abusive government from what they were ruled by under the British. Each state constitution already established a Bill of Rights or a list of individual rights to be maintained and protected, but the new national constitution seemed to overpower these rights. Article 6 of the Constitution states that the Constitution shall be the supreme law of the land. Does this mean that the national government can overrule the individual rights established by these state governments? Opponents of the new Constitution feared for their rights and freedoms for this reason. On the other side of the argument, believers in the new Constitution didn't think they needed to list individual rights because the government they were creating was incapable of abusing power. The government got its power from the people, and the people only gave it a little power. The government could only do what the Constitution said it could do. For example, if the Constitution didn't say that the government could not limit freedom of speech, then the government could not limit freedom of speech. These individual rights, according to this group, were already baked into the Constitution. Now, those who wanted a Bill of Rights weren't buying this argument. They saw many ways that power-hungry leaders could get around these limits on power in the Constitution. Remember our lesson on dictatorships? People who get power tend to want more power, and then ultimately they abuse that power once they receive it. They abuse that power for their own gain. Without a Bill of Rights, Americans would be completely unprotected when the constitutional government one day became as powerful and tyrannical as the rest of the world's governments. But would the rulers of America become tyrants? Those who wanted the Constitution believed that because anyone could serve in office regardless of class, nobility, or standing, the government would always be of the people and freedom would not be in danger. In fact, supporters of the Constitution feared that a Bill of Rights could even be more dangerous to individual rights than having no Bill of Rights at all. Well, how could it be more dangerous without a Bill of Rights? They argued that if the Constitution doesn't give the government power to limit freedom of speech in the first place, but then you say that the government cannot limit freedom of speech, doesn't that kind of imply that maybe the government does somehow have that power to limit free speech? These people opposed to a Bill of Rights did not like the idea of putting limits on powers that the government didn't even have. So what ultimately happens here? The Constitution does get a Bill of Rights. The terms of the Constitution said that it would become effective after just 9 states ratified it. But as state approvals started rolling in, some came with conditions. Several states requested changes or additions to the Constitution, and surprise, most of these requests involved listing individual rights. In order to get key states on board, those who supported the Constitution finally agreed to add a Bill of Rights as soon as the Constitution was ratified. Ultimately, the pro-Constitution people weren't nearly as afraid of having a Bill of Rights as the anti-Constitution people were afraid of not having one. They understood the fear, and the agreement was a gesture of goodwill meant to bring everyone together around the new Constitution. Above all, those who supported the Constitution wanted to see the United States become a nation of unified people.